Discover the incredible journey of one warrior, how Genghis Khan transformed history forever. Sarah flipped through the pages of the book with a lethargic sigh. Another year, another cycle of filling students with dry facts about ancient civilizations. She closed her eyes for a moment, fingers brushing against the spine, feeling a sense of defeat wash over her. Her passion for history remained unwavering, yet the monotony of the curriculum threatened to snuff it out. The echo of laughter from the classroom next door was a reminder of innovation, a stark contrast to the rigidity enforced by Michael, her department head, who saw no value in her dynamic approach. Doubts crept in, whispering that perhaps her dreams of transforming perceptions and sparking enthusiasm were foolish. As weeks passed, teaching felt like an uphill battle against an avalanche of static traditions. Each lecture was met with the same glazed expressions, a cycle of lessons devoid of life. She often found herself torn, yearning to share the captivating stories of history but shackled by the fear of disappointing Michael. His authority cast a long shadow over her ambitions, and the thought of rebellion made her stomach churn with anxiety. What would it mean to challenge his views? Would she be risking her career for a fleeting moment of creativity? And what about her family, with their struggles looming large? The weight of that uncertainty nudged Sarah into isolation, her thoughts a tangled web of hesitation. One afternoon, while cleaning out the dusty archives of the school library, a hidden collection of Genghis Khan's lost letters caught her eye. As she carefully unwrapped the letters, a wave of exhilaration washed over her, blending seamlessly with the dread of discovery. Each word breathed life into the tales of bravery and tenacity, igniting an unwavering connection deep within her. This could change everything, she thought, her heart racing. As she immersed herself in Khan's life, Sarah couldn't ignore the parallels emerging with her own: the determination, the desire to break free from the constraints of life's expectations. Yet her thoughts were interrupted by a tightening grip of fear. What if Michael perceived this path as a threat? Could her passion become a source of conflict, endangering not only her career but also her core beliefs about teaching? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. However, Sarah's initial excitement turned into a tempest of anxiety. Her hidden connection to Mongolia felt like a double-edged sword, an opportunity for empowerment, yet a revelation that deepened her insecurities. She clutched the letters and pondered what it meant to embrace her identity, knowing it could either limit her or set her free. The responsibility of unveiling this knowledge felt monumental. She envisioned a project to captivate her students, to breathe life into every lesson by embodying Khan's strategic brilliance. But the looming presence of Michael hovered over her plans like dark clouds threatening a storm. As she prepared for the presentation, her heart raced with exhilaration and dread. With every polished slide, a gripping uncertainty tightened around her. What if Michael dismantled her dream before it took flight? What if her students remained oblivious to the depth of their potential? She was poised on the edge of transformation, yet the specter of mediocrity loomed large. On the day of the presentation, the classroom buzzed with anticipation. With each heartbeat echoing in her ears, Sarah felt the storm within her raging. Would she find the courage to inspire a chance to reclaim her identity, or would fear invoke a silence that suffocated her dreams? As she took a deep breath and began, the lingering question hung in the air, a tantalizing mystery left unresolved. As Sarah stood before the class, the weight of her own expectations bore down on her like a heavy cloak. She gazed into the faces of her students, each one a blank canvas receptive to the stories she yearned to paint. Taking a calming breath, she scanned the room for a sign of understanding or interest. She needed something to ground her in this pivotal moment. When she began to recount the exhilarating tales from Genghis Khan's life, his fierce ambition, his strategies on the battlefield, and the way he forged alliances, something changed. A flicker of interest sparked in a few students' eyes. The thrill of sharing the narrative ignited a fire within her, and for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt a sense of agency. She moved beyond the rigid constraints of her script, she allowed her passion to breathe, interweaving anecdotes about the cultural richness of Mongolia, the strategic innovations that emerged under Khan's rule, and how a single vision could alter the course of history. As she spoke, fragments of Genghis Khan's spirit echoed within her. Perhaps she was not just recounting history, she was part of it, forging her path in the very same way he had. But just as she felt herself rising, an insistent voice broke through her rhythm. Interesting story, but what's the point? Michael stood at the back, arms crossed, his face a mask of skepticism. The laughter and engaged murmurs in the classroom dwindled, replaced by an oppressive silence. Could he really not see the connection? Frustration coursed through Sarah. Why was it that her conviction could make her vulnerable? This was exactly the moment she dreaded. What's the point? She echoed, her voice steadying as an unexpected warmth began to seep into her resolve. This was a critical inquiry and one she had wrestled with herself. What was the point of teaching history if it wasn't to inspire? Sarah met Michael's gaze, her heart racing with purpose. The point is that history is not just a series of dates and events. It's a testament to resilience and strategy, a chance for us all to learn from those who have come before us. Surprisingly, her words seemed to resonate with the class, and their eyes flickered back to life. A brave hand shot up from the back, a student named Jake, usually disengaged and distracted. So, are you saying that we can learn from Khan's mistakes too? Like, make better choices today? The inquiry opened a crack in the walls Michael had put up around her, allowing fresh air into the room. Exactly. Sarah replied, her voice gaining momentum. Every decision we make, every obstacle we face, can be viewed as a chance to grow. Genghis Khan wasn't merely a ruthless conqueror, he was a story of how one can dominate circumstances instead of being dominated by them. As the discussion unfolded, Sarah realized how powerful this moment was, not just for her students, but for herself. She had reclaimed control not only of the classroom but of her narrative. As insights flowed and connections sparked, the atmosphere shifted. It was no longer just a history lesson but a gathering of shared human experiences and aspirations. But amidst this rising tide of enthusiasm, the unease of Michael's looming presence remained, a constant reminder that the battle for acceptance was far from over. With every question asked, she could sense the storm growing. Was it Michael's disapproval or her self-doubt that she truly feared? As the bell rang, signaling the end of class, the students buzzed with excitement. They had delved into history and emerged transformed, inspired to think critically and connect past lessons to their future. However, when the classroom emptied, Sarah found herself alone with Michael. This was the confrontation she had anticipated, yet it shocked her into stillness. Good effort, but remember our curriculum, Michael warned, his voice low and steely. Not everyone's ready for your blend of creativity. Be careful. As he turned to leave, Sarah felt adrenaline surge through her. The fear that had gripped her was slowly transforming into something else, a newfound determination to unearth her place, her method of teaching. Facing Michael would mean reveling in her own authenticity, but the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. What would she choose in this critical moment? As she gazed at the words on the board, one question whispered through her mind: did she dare to challenge the order that defined her world? The answer loomed, critical and defining, as she stepped toward her next decision. As the echo of the classroom bell faded, Sarah's mind buzzed with the electric thrill of that prior discussion. It had felt as if a veil had lifted, allowing light to penetrate the shadows of her doubt. But confronting Michael had crystallized a harsh reality. She was teetering on the precipice of significant change in her professional identity. His warning hung over her like a storm cloud, and part of her cringed under its weight. Yet the adrenaline that surged within her was undeniable, flickering like a flame intent on becoming a fire. She moved to her desk, ruminating on her options, balancing between compliance and creativity. Would she follow the prescribed curriculum, or would she forge her own method of teaching? The question was as daunting as it was liberating. Authenticity, she whispered to herself, testing the taste of the word. What did it mean for her as a teacher? In a world where standardized tests dictated success, could authenticity have a place? Sarah's thoughts spiraled back to the surge of interest she had seen in her students' eyes. The thrill of storytelling was a powerful connector. Perhaps there was a way to reconcile the curriculum with her unique teaching style. She pulled open her planner, filled with lessons meticulously crafted to align with the rigid syllabus. Glancing between the pages and the words running through her mind, she felt a sudden surge of clarity. There was a heartbeat in history, a pulse that thrummed through each lesson, waiting to be unveiled. With a deep breath, Sarah grabbed a marker and scrawled across the board, "Experiencing history." It was a concept, a challenge that could intertwine established facts with narratives that resonated. What if she integrated experiential learning, a project where students would explore the implications of leadership, strategy, and ethics through the prism of historical figures? Genghis Khan could serve as the starting point, but not the limit. Her heart raced as she envisioned the possibilities: a debate reflecting Khan's decisions, a creative project to represent different perspectives on conquest. A realization gripped her: the motivation behind the pursuit of knowledge was to empower students to think critically, to analyze, and to make informed choices. It was about building resilience in their own lives, not differing from her aspirations as an educator. As she sketched out ideas, the door swung open. Michael stepped back in with a measured expression. "Still here?" he asked, his tone slightly softened but holding the same undercurrent of authority. "I'm working on a new approach," she declared, surprising even herself with the firmness in her voice. "I want to make history relatable and engaging, so they can connect it to their lives." He raised an eyebrow. "The curriculum demands structure. Creativity is great, but facts are what they're being tested on." "But don't you see?" Sarah countered, her passion breaking through. "Facts can be dry and forgettable, but stories can ignite inspiration. I want them to engage with history, not just memorize it. Isn't that the point?" For a moment, silence enveloped them. Michael's defensive posture softened, but the skepticism lingered. "It's a gamble, Sarah. You know that." The weight of his words settled on her shoulders. Gambling her reputation against the established norms was risky. Yet, underneath the fear, a flicker of defiance stirred. She stayed rooted in her conviction, knowing this was her moment. "Maybe it's time for a change in how we approach education. A calculated one, based on what resonates, not just what conforms." He regarded her thoughtfully before conceding, "Just remember how quickly the tides can turn in this profession. You're playing with fire." As he walked away, a mix of exhilaration and trepidation coursed through her. She was gearing up for a battle, though. Sarah could feel it, a challenge to her authority, her creativity, and her teaching philosophy. The real question loomed in her mind: could she stay true to her vision and navigate these treacherous waters simultaneously? The next day she would present her proposal to the students. Would they embrace this freedom, or recoil into comfortable learning patterns? Sarah's heart raced at the thought. Change was on the horizon, and she would have to summon every ounce of courage she possessed to see it through. "Tomorrow," she murmured, steeling herself for what lay ahead. Would this leap into the unknown solidify her role as an innovator or plunge her deeper into conflict with the establishment? The moment of decision was drawing near, and with it, the exhilarating prospect of transformation. The morning sun streamed through the classroom windows as Sarah prepared for the day ahead. Each ray felt like a spotlight illuminating her resolve, yet the tight knot in her stomach betrayed her true feelings. Today was the day she would step beyond the boundaries of tradition. A part of her understood the risk involved: defiance in educational norms could lead to backlash, and she knew Michael's words still echoed like a warning siren in her mind. She arranged her notes, each page a brushstroke of her burgeoning vision, and rehearsed her introduction, the urgency in her voice swelling with anticipation. Would her students understand? Would they resonate with the idea of experiencing history instead of merely learning it? Sarah set her jaw, reminding herself that this wasn't merely about her but about igniting a spark in young minds that had so often been dulled by data-driven lecturing. As the students trickled in, Sarah took a moment to breathe deeply, her heartbeat accelerating with each fresh face. Mr. Hall, the veteran history teacher who held the adjacent room, walked by and caught her eye. A knowing smile flickered across his lips, an unspoken encouragement that made her grateful for the rare moments of camaraderie. But as she watched his retreating figure, a shadow of doubt crept in. Would he dismiss her effort, as Michael had, when he learned of her approach? "Okay, everyone, settle down," she called firmly, steadying her voice. The chatter dimmed, and attentive faces turned toward her, hinting at an unyielding curiosity. "I have something exciting planned for us this term," she began, a smile breaking through her resolve. "Instead of memorizing dates and events, we're going to truly experience history. We're going to step into the shoes of historical figures and embody their choices. We're starting with Genghis Khan." Gasps rippled through the room. Some students shifted uneasily, while others leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide with curiosity. That reaction was a balm for her nerves, perhaps they were willing to engage. She detailed her vision debates on Khan's policies, role-playing scenarios where they would address the ethical ramifications of his conquests, and a project where they would create presentations from the perspectives of the conquered peoples. Each proposal radiated potential, yet she braced herself for resistance. "But Ms. Walker," interrupted Jenna, a bright student from the back, "what about the tests? They just want us to know the facts." "Exactly," Sarah replied, inspired by her inquiry. "But think about it, what good are facts if you have no context? When you understand the why behind events, you remember them. It's like the difference between knowing a recipe and understanding the art of cooking. Wouldn't you rather learn how to think like a historian?" Sarah's pulse quickened as her students discussed amongst themselves. She could almost hear the wheels turning in their heads. And yet, another voice broke through the pulse of enthusiasm. Josh, a more skeptical student, crossed his arms. "What if we fail? I mean, can we afford to mess around when we have to pass tests?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Sarah could feel her composure wavering. This was the moment she had to navigate, the crossroads of innovation and apprehension. "Let us make a deal," she proposed, her conviction rising. "If we engage in this new way and you find you can't grasp the material or perform on the tests, I'll adjust. But if you thrive, if this approach fuels your passion for learning, then it becomes a model for future classes." A murmur of interest spread through the classroom. There was trepidation, yes, but also a flicker of excitement. Would they dare to explore the unknown alongside her, unabashedly stepping away from conventional paths? As the students began to chatter excitedly about roles and projects, Sarah felt a surge of empowerment. She watched them transform from passive learners to dynamic participants, daring her to cross into uncharted territory. The leap of faith wouldn't just be hers. But as the class progressed and they dove deeper into discussing their thoughts on Genghis Khan's legacy, a lurking shadow crept back. Would the administration accept her methods, or would she face repercussions for stepping so far outside the conventional box? Was her gamble about to blow up in her face? The day's discussions wrapped up, but Sarah's mind was still racing as the bell rang. She felt the weight of the moment resting on her shoulders, the stakes were higher than mere lesson plans. The ramifications of her choices were real, and as she left the classroom, loitering maybe a moment too long in the doorway, she knew she had ventured into a battlefield, one that could alter the course of her career. Tomorrow, she would face Michael again with the students' enthusiasm buoying her resolve. Would he recognize the potential in her approach, or would she find herself fighting to defend it? The realization that the confrontation awaited her sent a ripple of trepidation through her. The moment to confront not just her strategies, but also her fears, was looming closer. How would she prove that authenticity and education could coexist in a system so resistant to change? The next morning arrived, stealthily cloaked in uncertainty. As Sarah walked through the school's hallowed halls, each step reverberated with the weight of anticipation. Today wasn't just another day, it was a test of her nerve, a confrontation of ideals. The echoes of laughter and chatter filled the air, offset by the clamoring thoughts in her head. Would she find understanding, or simply resistance? As the first bell chimed, Sarah entered her classroom, greeted by a mosaic of youthful faces, a blend of excitement and skepticism already on display. The sanctuary she had created, where thoughts and ideas could bloom, shifted uneasily in anticipation of change. Their faces reflected the very struggles she faced, the desire to break free from tradition, overshadowed by the fear of failure. Good morning, everyone. Today, we keep stepping into the shoes of Genghis Khan, she announced, trying to mask the tremor in her voice with enthusiasm. The students settled in, the chatter dwindling, but a palpable tension hovered over them. Josh's skeptical expression ignited a flicker of discomfort within her. He raised his hand, his stance unwavering. Ms. Walker, is this really going to help? I mean, aren't we just role-playing? We have tests to ace. Exactly, Josh, she acknowledged, meeting his gaze head-on. But role-playing isn't just play. It's a strategy to engage and challenge you. Think about the prize, better understanding, improved retention. Don't you want to emerge not just as a test taker, but as a thinker? Yet, she understood his fear. Each test looming ahead acted as a double-edged sword, weighing heavily on her own mind. It was a reminder that the traditional metrics of success were tightening around her like a noose. Sarah realized she wasn't merely trying to open a classroom door, she was trying to redefine what success meant in that space. Jenna piped up, emboldened by Sarah's response. What if we create a presentation as Khan's advisors? Analyze his decisions from multiple perspectives. That could show a deeper understanding. The energy in the room shifted, enthusiasm blooming as they discussed their objectives, debating which roles to tackle. Yet within Sarah grew a swirling vortex of unease. Would their creativity carry them through the rigors of an academic structure that revered data over imagination? As the discussion spiraled, her mind raced to Michael, the looming specter of authority and tradition. The image of his stern face contrasted against her vision of a vibrant classroom filled with exploration. Confronting him felt similarly daunting. Would he see the brilliance in their engagement, or would he dismiss it as frivolous? Let us scaffold our approach, Sarah suggested, attempting to corral the escalating excitement while maintaining her professional facade. We'll keep a portfolio tracking our learning progress. If we all contribute, we can demonstrate knowledge and engage critically. While Sarah aimed to channel their passion into structured learning, her heart raced under Michael's impending scrutiny. A doubt gnawed at her, was she a leader or simply a fool? As the class came to an end, students eagerly shared their excitement about their impending projects. Their vibrancy filled the air, illuminating Sarah's path forward. But a sharp pang of anxiety bit at her as reality settled back in. The inevitable upcoming meeting with Michael loomed closer, setting the stage for a clash between innovation and convention. Tomorrow will be crucial, she thought, mentally preparing for the confrontation that lay ahead. Could she convince not just a superior, but a traditionalist to embrace her vision? Defiance surged within her, battling against the oppressive weight of doubt. She steeled herself for the upcoming dialogue, uncertain yet resolute. Something within her stirred, an ember igniting under the pressure. Tomorrow would be more than a confrontation, it would be a declaration of her commitment to change. Would Sarah find the courage to not only defend her teaching methods but also reshape the narrative of education itself? The anticipation crackled in the air, a transformative collision awaited. The dawn of a new day felt different, charged with a blend of anxiety and resolve. As Sarah navigated the school corridors, the impending meeting with Michael loomed at the forefront of her mind, an unwelcome guest that fueled her apprehension. Every conversation she had heard echoed in her head, warning her of the rigid structures that had long held sway over education. Today, she would test the boundaries that bound her creativity with tradition. Her classroom, once a sanctuary of experimentation, felt like a battleground. The students were lively, a cacophony of laughter and debate filling the air, yet beneath their exuberance lay an undercurrent of uncertainty. She needed to channel that energy into a unified front, a collective push towards an idea that could potentially reshuffle the stack of academic protocols. "Let us review what we're trying to achieve," she started, striving to articulate her vision clearly. "We're stepping into the shoes of Genghis Khan not just to play, but to think critically about leadership, decision-making, and consequences. This is about understanding the choices that shaped history, and how they relate to our own lives." As words left her mouth, she felt the weight of their skepticism of the very system that trained them to view education as a checklist of criteria to meet. Their eyes were not only reflecting their doubts but also awakening her determination. It was no longer just about the lesson plan, it was about the broader implications of encouraging genuine thought versus mere conformity. The afternoon slipped away in lively discussions and workshop planning, but the inkling of doubt in Sarah began to morph into something more potent. With each idea proposed, she grew more connected to her responsibility as an educator, realizing that she was fighting not only for her teaching methods but for her students' intellectual liberation. The scrutiny she anticipated from Michael became less of a fear and more of a challenge, one that she needed to embrace with tenacity and authenticity. "Let us make sure we document everything," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "This portfolio will be our evidence and defense. It's not just our studies, it's a reflection of our engagement. We have to prove the value of this unconventional approach in a way he can't ignore." As the final bell rang, students packed their bags with a new fire in their enthusiasm. Sarah stood at the door, watching them stride out, their excitement infectious. She felt a pulse of hope. Maybe they could redefine the narrative they had been fed, the one that constricted creativity and stifled inquiry. Yet, a chilling thought crept back into her mind. The closer she got to the meeting with Michael, the more palpable the pressure became. What if he dismissed her insights? Was she prepared for the possibility of failure, not only for herself but for the class, whom she had promised a better educational experience? In preparing for the confrontation, Sarah realized she needed to confront her own insecurities. Would she have the courage to stand firm, to articulate not only why this mattered but also the potential consequences of ignoring such an opportunity for growth? As the day wound down, she returned home, wrestling with her self-doubt, and question after question plagued her. Was she truly ready to challenge Michael? What if he refused to listen, preferring to stick to tradition? But as she glanced out the window, watching the twilight bathe the streets in shadows, an unfamiliar backbone ignited within her, a defiance she had not acknowledged before. This was not just a battle for her class, it was a fundamental shift in her role as an educator. She owed it to herself and to her students to present her vision with undeterred conviction. The confrontation loomed. Would she allow fear to dictate her actions, or would she embrace the risk for the sake of a revolution? The moment of truth was closer than she realized, and Sarah vowed that she would not shrink away. Tomorrow would be a reckoning. The stakes hadn't been this high before, and she felt both terrified and exhilarated. Would she find the courage to confront not just a colleague but the remnants of a tradition that long held sway? Her heart raced at the thought. A storm was brewing on the horizon, and she was at the helm, ready to navigate its fury. The sun filtered through Sarah's curtains, casting slanted beams of light across her cluttered room. The morning felt deceptively calm, a stark contrast to the tempest brewing within her. Today was not just another day at school, it had become a pivotal moment in her career, the culmination of her silent battle against the conventions that threatened her passion for education. As she dressed, deliberate in her choices, she pulled on a blazer that felt slightly out of character yet empowering, a conscious decision to embody the authority she hoped to project later. Driving to school, every red light seemed to mock her urgency, each delay adding layers of tension to her rising anxiety. With each passing moment, Sarah's mind raced through potential strategies, rehearsing dialogues that might sway Michael, the man she believed was a gatekeeper to change. Though she felt an intense yearning to push boundaries, the gnawing worry of confrontation still tugged at her thoughts, flinging her into a mental cycle of self-doubt. Arriving at school, she felt the familiar chaos of a bustling hallway lapping at her like waves. Yet, instead of retreating into her shell, she took a moment to breathe in the vibrant chaos. She was not alone, her students were counting on her. She made her way to her classroom, resolute and ready to empower them one last time before facing the reckoning with Michael. "Okay, everyone, gather around," she called out, her voice steady. "Today is our final preparation for the presentation. This isn't just about sharing a project, it's about demonstrating our approach to learning. I need you all to remember, you are the heart of this initiative. Trust what we've created." The students huddled closer, their enthusiasm palpable. Sarah watched their faces, flickering with excitement yet mixed with uncertainty. She wanted to reassure them, but deep down, she was confronting her own rising tide of fear. Would Michael see the potential they cultivated, or would he dismiss them? "Remember, we're presenting not just what we learned academically, we're showcasing how we've engaged with the material emotionally and intellectually. Each response needs to reflect not only your understanding but your passion for the process," she emphasized, her heart racing faster with each moment. As they rehearsed, she observed a few students stammer under pressure, their confidence flickering like a candle's flame. It stung, a painful reminder of her own insecurities. But rather than feeling defeated, she channeled her anxiety, recognizing it mirrored their feelings. It was an opportunity. "Failure is simply feedback," she reminded them, echoing her own mantras in a bid to bolster their spirits. "Remember, today, if things go awry, find strength in this team. I believe in you, you have the power to reshape how learning unfolds, not just for us but for future classes," she encouraged, her conviction sharpening her resolve. She realized that this meeting was not just her battle to win. It was a shared mission. Finally, the bell chimed, signaling the end of the preparation period. Holding on to the energy her students exuded, Sarah made her way to Michael's office, breathing deeply as she moved through the halls. The weight of her purpose steadied her heartbeat. She wasn't just advocating for creativity, but for her students' right to think freely. She reached Michael's door, hesitating as she placed her palm against it. Reflecting on what she was about to embark upon, she understood she was challenging not just a colleague but an entire educational tradition. Would her drive to innovate spark a shift, or would she face another setback? Summoning her courage, she prepared to confront the formidable barrier ahead. The time had come to face the consequences of her convictions, and the stakes had never felt higher. With a decisive breath, Sarah knocked. The moment of truth arrived. Would she be heard, or would she be silenced by the weight of tradition? When the door swung open, a flood of uncertainty accompanied her into the room, the air heavy with anticipation. As the door creaked open, Sarah braced herself, stepping into an office that felt both imposing and sterile, lined with academic accolades and framed diplomas that seemed to watch her every move. Michael sat at his desk, poised behind a fortress of papers, his expression unreadable. The air between them crackled with unspoken challenges, a silent acknowledgement of the institutional power he wielded. "Sarah," he said, looking up with a slight arch of his brow. "What brings you here?" She hesitated, caught off guard by the directness of his tone. "I wanted to discuss the presentation, what the students have developed and how it reshapes their learning experience." Each word emerged from her lips like a carefully prepared piece of armor, defensive yet revealing her determination. Michael leaned back, his fingers steepled before him. "Interesting. But you know as well as I do that not all your ideas align with the curriculum guidelines." His tone was calm but laced with an undercurrent of skepticism. Confrontation bubbled beneath the surface. This was at the moment where her years of effort collided head-on with the status quo. A year's worth of self-reflection surged within her, amplifying the intensity of her resolve. Innovation often comes from breaking out of prescribed boundaries. Today's world needs dynamic thinkers, not just followers of rote memorization. Hesitation flickered in Michael's eyes, just a moment's pause. It was her opening. Sarah plunged deeper, fueled by adrenaline. These students need to see that their voices and experiences matter. They're capable of so much more than traditional education allows. I'm asking for you to see beyond the guidelines, to understand that learning should be about discovery, passion, and critical thinking. In the pause that followed, Sarah's heart pounded fiercely. Would he hear her? Would he acknowledge the potential she saw in her students, or would he double down, entrenching himself in the rigidity of his beliefs? Michael finally uncrossed his arms, leaning forward. I appreciate your passion, but this school has protocols for a reason. You really think your method will yield better results? The question rattled her. Was it possible that her belief in this method could be wrong? She had encountered criticism before, but the stakes felt monumental now. Yes, I do believe it. I've seen students light up when they're engaged and experiencing learning viscerally. Helping them cultivate a sense of agency only empowers them as thinkers, as leaders. A challenge lurked beneath his measured exterior, and she realized that she wasn't just advocating for her students anymore, she was fighting for her own professional identity. The outcome might not align perfectly with standardized tests, but isn't education about forming well-rounded individuals? So much of what she had learned in her own journey echoed in her words. She had discovered her competence in pushing boundaries. Michael's finger tapped a pen nervously against his desk. You do understand that the administration might not support your approach, correct? Any deviations could endanger funding, resources, even your own position here. The weight of his threat settled heavily in the air between them, and for the first time, Sarah felt entirely exposed. The stakes had risen, and she was no longer merely negotiating for her teaching method, she was defending her career. I am willing to take that risk, she asserted, meeting his gaze squarely. It was a revelation, her readiness to embrace uncertainty for the potential of greater good. Silence enveloped the room as Michael examined her, perhaps for the first time weighing her authenticity against the institutional norms he guarded. What had begun as external debate shifted into an internal wrestling match within her. She understood that this was about more than just presenting a proposal, it was about who she chose to be amidst resistance. I'll consider what you've said, but you'll need to prepare for any possible outcomes, he replied, his voice unyielding. The meeting drew to a close, yet another layer of tension unfurled inside her. She left his office with a mix of hope and dread, each step reflecting the gravity of her newfound resolve. What followed would shape not only her career but her understanding of what it meant to advocate for transformative learning. Back in her classroom, she looked out at her students, hopeful and eager, ready to tackle their presentation. Would Michael advocate for them, or was she walking into an uncertain future? As their faces brightened with anticipation, a new plan began to form in her mind, one that pushed her further beyond her comfort zone, toward a confrontation not solely with institutional barriers, but with her own emerging identity. The bell rang, signaling the start of the presentation. Sarah took a deep breath, knowing that today would either ignite change or challenge her courage in ways she hadn't yet imagined. With her heart in her throat, she approached her students once more, confident that whatever came next would illuminate paths she had yet to consider. Little did she know, the decision that awaited her would demand not just her professional skills but her very essence as an educator. How far was she willing to go for the future she envisioned? The vibrant chatter of her students filled the classroom as the presentation began, each voice a testament to their enthusiasm. Sarah leaned against the desk at the front, absorbing their energy, her own heart racing in time with each eager question they posed and each idea they shared. The room buzzed with creativity, she could see the embodiment of her beliefs reflected in their engagement. They were not merely presenting concepts, they were sharing narratives that mattered, reshaping their understanding of the world around them. As she navigated through the spectrum of discussion, however, doubt crept into her mind. Would Michael recognize the value in this method, or would he dismiss it as an anomaly that strayed from expectations? The thought gnawed at her, a persistent shadow cast by the very encounter that had ignited her determination. Sarah felt the urge to pack away the uncertainty, to siphon it off to the back of her mind, but it persisted. Looking at her students, she recalled the late nights spent brainstorming ways to engage them authentically, the deliberate effort to craft assignments that encouraged exploration rather than replication of standardized patterns. Today was the culmination of that effort, a pivotal moment where policy met real potential. After the presentation concluded, the room erupted in applause, a wave of appreciation that washed over all of them. The euphoric feeling was quickly replaced by a looming anxiety as she remembered Michael would be present during the feedback session. She could almost picture him, the stoic, unmoving figure huddled at the back, assessing and weighing the worthiness of every word spoken. In the moments that followed, she monitored the students' responses to their peers' work, marveling at how they articulated their thoughts, celebrating each other as innovative approaches. A sense of pride welled within her. They were manifesting everything she had envisioned. Yet, a quiet voice inside her whispered that the battle was not won, that there lay an inevitable conflict just on the horizon. Then came the fateful moment when Michael stood to give his critique. He surveyed the presenting students with an air that was both evaluative and distant. Sarah's heart raced. She held her breath, expecting a scathing review that would leave her ideas exposed in the harsh light of scrutiny. "Impressive work," he began, his voice steady but devoid of genuine enthusiasm. "But I still wonder how much this aligns with our core curriculum objectives." The familiar skepticism slipped into his tone once more, like a warning label. Despite the praise embedded in his words, his reluctance to embrace the innovation left Sarah torn between elation and defiance. Why was it so hard for him to see the potential in this experiential learning? The thoughts clashed within her, a stir of anguish battling against her optimism. In that moment of critique, she sensed her own conviction wavering, doubt wormed its way through her resolve. Perhaps striving for change had obscured her vision. Was she truly willing to gamble so much on a method unrecognized by the institution? She noticed her students' faces shift, mirroring her inner conflict. Some looked proud, while others seemed to question if their efforts had been fruitless. The oscillation of emotions within the room deepened her understanding. They too were wrestling with the weight of validation versus rejection. Determined not to allow Michael's skepticism to crush their spirit, she took a deep breath. "I believe this approach is not just about meeting objectives," Sarah interjected, her voice steady, filled with renewed courage. "It's about fostering thinkers who can navigate complexities beyond our four walls. Isn't that what education should ultimately strive for?" Silence blanketed the room, punctuated only by her words that rippled throughout the air. Her heart raced, her mind was alight with fear and anticipation. Had she just crossed a threshold? Would this defiance bring her closer to the administration or push them to tighten their grip on conventional practices? Michael regarded her, his expression inscrutable. She could feel the tension mount, the battle within her transformed into a confrontation that transcended the physical space. She had planned her future around a vision of transformative education, but the realization settled heavily upon her. Whatever came next, she needed to define her role. The clarity of that insight galvanized her, though it also stirred discomfort. Now it was a matter of deciding how far she was willing to go, what risks lay ahead with her professional integrity on the line. As her students turned to her, expectant and wide-eyed, she understood that the path forward would require not just leadership, but vulnerability. Here was the essence of her journey, the unfolding of not just her students' potential but her own identity as an educator. In that pivotal moment, she knew there were choices yet unmade. Would she retreat to safety, or plunge deeper into the uncertainty? The path of advocacy was fraught with challenges, and the next decision hovered close, shrouded in the fog of possibility. The time had come to face the unknown, and Sarah felt a spark of something greater. Was it courage? A conviction that transcended fear? Relief? The bells of destiny rang louder as she braced herself for the next act in her unfolding saga, one where each choice could lead not only to the evolution of her teaching but to the very fabric of the educational landscape before her. As Sarah stepped away from the tension of Michael's critique, she felt a shift within her. The fear that had once gripped her heart began to dissolve, replaced by a resilient clarity. For the first time, she realized that the confrontation wasn't merely about the presentation, it was a pivotal moment in her evolution as an educator. Her identity was intertwined with the very ideas she was fighting to protect. Determination surged within her. The students had thrived in the chaos of creativity she had orchestrated, and their excitement was not something she could allow to be overshadowed by the skepticism of a single authority. Their faces lit with enthusiasm reminded her of her purpose, to educate with passion, to inspire connection, and to cultivate critical thinking. "Today, we'll shift our focus," she declared, her voice steady, infused with newfound confidence. "We can't just reshape the past, we have to carve out a path forward. And that path includes embracing our voices, standing firm in what we believe to be true about education." With a nod from her students, she felt the collective energy reverberate throughout the classroom. There was a pivotal moment in the air, one that connected them all, an unspoken pact confirming their shared goal. They were no longer just participants in a lesson, they were co-innovators in a movement toward a more vibrant educational experience. In the days that followed, Sarah fully embraced her identity as an advocate for educational reform. She strategized and implemented discussions, drawing from historical figures like Genghis Khan, but also from contemporary leaders who had embraced change at great personal cost. Each lesson built upon the last, crafting an environment where apprehension gave way to exploration. Word quickly spread about her dynamic approach and the palpable engagement of her students, attracting the attention of fellow teachers and even parents. The enthusiasm bubbled over during school meetings, leading to conversations about best practices and teaching methodologies. Michael, initially an impediment, became an inadvertent ally as he observed the tangible enthusiasm blossoming in her classroom. As the semester progressed, her students showcased their projects at a quarterly presentation. Families filled the auditorium, buzzing with excitement and curiosity. The life they had breathed into the history lessons was undeniable. One by one, her students stood before their peers, their nerves melting away as they spoke with conviction about their learning journeys. Each presentation resonated, students explaining Genghis Khan's strategies through the lens of contemporary leadership challenges, providing their insights about resilience and innovation as crucial elements in their personal lives. Watching their confidence bloom, Sarah felt a surge of pride. They weren't just regurgitating information, they were proving that history held profound lessons applicable to their lives. She recognized that the energy emanating from them was a reflection of her own growth as an educator. This was her newfound achievement, her solid confidence as an agent of change in education, recognizing her competence and capacity as a transformative guide. The real validation came as administrators began to take notice. In the weeks following the presentations, Sarah received an unexpected invitation to discuss her approach with the district leadership. The exhaustion that had followed her initially faded, replaced by anticipation as she prepared for her biggest pitch yet. "Your students have excelled and engaged with material in ways we rarely see. We are impressed," the district head began, an air of enthusiasm electrifying the room. "We want to explore how we might implement some of your strategies throughout our curriculum. Your vision is something we believe in." The proposal to expand her methods beyond her classroom was exhilarating. The recognition was validating both personally and professionally. Each accolade felt like a badge of honor, and she had fought for the right not just to teach, but to teach with authenticity, setting a precedent for others to follow. As Sarah wrapped up her meeting with the district, a sense of accomplishment washed over her, as conflated with another realization: she had not only advocated for herself, but for educational reform grounded in creativity and critical thinking. With each step forward, she had intertwined her journey with her students' futures. In the weeks to come, she mentored her colleagues, encouraging them to explore their own ideas in the spirit of discovery. Her classroom transformed into a hub of innovation, resonating with a philosophy and culture of continuous improvement. They, too, became champions of authentic engagement, setting the stage for a wave of progressive change. In reflection, Sarah marveled at how far she had come from a hesitant teacher shackled by fears of tradition to a confident advocate flowing seamlessly through the maze of educational challenges. She had demonstrated not only her capacity to inspire but had also nurtured her identity as a leader within the educational community. As she walked through the school halls, she felt the warmth of appreciation pouring forth, echoing through every classroom, every engagement. The adventure she embarked upon for her students had profoundly transformed her. She had conquered her own doubts, reshaped perceptions, and emerged triumphantly. The journey was never solely about Genghis Khan, it was about stepping into her own power, embodying resilience, and persisting against the odds. Sarah achieved not only professional fulfillment but also an authentic milestone as a beacon of change in education. It's time to join this transformative journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support this powerful journey. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your thoughts matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and embark on their own transformation. Take action now. Don't wait even one more second to show your support.